Do you believe what Elon says or you don't? And guess what? He's almost always right. Most people like Jensen Huang believes what he says. What he's saying now, the race to AI, is every single company, they're all basically leapfrogging each other. They're basically there. The reason is because they've all used the same data. The data that's available is
imagine a world where energy and labor are free. How does Herbert see this? But maybe also, when do you think we're getting close to that?
wow. Okay, I think
All right. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ideal Investor Show, and another one today where I'm very, very honored to have somebody. I just told him I've been following him for a very long time. Herbert Ong, welcome to the Ideal Investor Show.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Axel. Appreciate being invited. This is great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm really honored. I mean it. So before we start talking a little bit about investing and some of the things that are coming in technology, tell the audience a little bit about yourself. One thing I for example, want to know as a German guy, how did your parents decide to call you Herbert?
I don't know. I just learned recently that Herbert is the number 2 name of people who are dying right now because it's so old.
Really?
Uh-huh. Number 1 is Elmer, which is my brother-in-law, by the way. He's German as well. And so it's just, so my joke is that every single day I become more special. So,
Well,
yeah. I think it's Herb Alpert. He was a famous clarinet player that my dad liked. So I think that's the story. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that could be. There's actually one guy, I don't know if you heard that. His name was Herbert van Karajan, a very famous composer. So, if there was a clarinet player in the game, so
Yeah.
who knows? Okay, very cool. So, but tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did you end up being where you are today?
Sure, absolutely. So I'm a startup entrepreneur. My background is on product management, where I enjoy creating products and marketing and creating, managing the business unit. I've ran 3 different startups. I've worked at very large companies, small companies, and it's about, creating breakthrough products that people love. And one of my claim to fames is this software that I created that 60% of all hospitals, healthcare analytics are using it today. And IBM Watson Health bought that. So, my focus has always been on technology and just loving disruptive technology specifically. So I'm an early adopter for everything. Early adopter for Gmail, for Instagram, for any tool that comes out. I want to be the first to find out what it is, what's it doing, why is it going to succeed. And then the thing that really drives me is people like Steve Jobs of Apple. I fell in love with that company very early on. I've invested heavily in Apple and just trying to learn everything I can about how does he run his business and why is it so different than others. Their
Right.
focus on product is so important. And of course, Tesla comes along and is very similar in Apple in some ways, breakthrough, disruptive, thinks differently, and even better in many, many ways. And so I've now become a huge investor in Tesla as well. But that's sort of what drives me is innovation and just people moving technology forward. So I think your podcast is called The Age of Abundance. And I think that is exactly like what drives me, that gets me very, very excited, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Tony basically really got, not with the latest book, but with the rethink stuff. I love that one quote, and I am sure you heard of it. I don't know if you mentioned it when you interviewed him, but this thing that, if you transition from a caterpillar to a butterfly, it isn't enough to just put wings on the caterpillar. Those kind of things, that stick with me. Now, before we get to this current stuff, was that an intention when you went to MIT to say this is kind of my interest, or how did that happen?
No. MIT was just a 3-week program. It's part of the companies, like the company I was working for sponsored us so that we can run business units. But it's just the whole idea of being able to understand the tech disruption that's happening and then being able to apply that to what your day-to-day job is doing. So, yeah.
Okay, very cool. Well, I did a little bit of research, and the AI tool that I used actually claimed that, yeah, he went to MIT. Okay.
No, no,
Well,
no. Yeah.
I have to ask him about that.
Yeah.
All right, very cool. Now, I also read, and maybe you tell me if that's true or not, but that you started investing in Tesla in 2012. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of those things. So what happened there was I grew up, or I live in Vancouver, Canada. I currently live in the US now. And at the time, I was very interested in, the future of sustainable energy. There was a
Right.
bus company called Ballard, based in Vancouver, Canada, and I invested in that. But unfortunately, that company did not do well, so I lost my money there.
Yeah.
But by 2012 comes, and I hear about Elon Musk and his efforts, and I was very interested in what he was doing. But he announced that he was going to invest, I think, $98 million of his own money at that round in 2012. I thought, okay, well, it's a very risky endeavor, but if he's willing to put in some money, I'll put in just a little bit. So I started putting in money at that point. 2013, stock tripled. You're seeing the great products coming out. The Model S comes out, everything's fantastic. He's got the new factory, and then of course it stays flat for 6, 7, 8 years. So it's been frustrating, but that's exactly kind of like exciting to watch this company develop from nothing to this image vision of what he had, and then here we are today. But yeah, I started following him since that early.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny, like, in my view, I didn't quite start that early. I got into 2020, so way later than you, but still compared to a lot of people,
Yeah.
quite a while ago. When I looked at some stuff, and Tony always talks about S curves,
Hmm.
but in a way, if you make it a little more edgy, it could almost be like a staircase, right? So I have the impression with Tesla, it's more like a staircase. They have an S, then they
Yeah.
have to develop for a while, then they have another S, then they have to develop for a nine, then they have another S. Um, I don't know if you agree with that, but before we get into more details about Tesla, I'm kind of curious. Our community that I'm providing the podcast and other stuff to originally and still to this day is mainly looking into real estate, but then from there to diversify. Now, you said that you founded companies, you invested in stock. Is there anything that you diversify into?
Oh yeah, no, of course. So yeah, when somebody says they're all in on a stock, you got to ask the question, what do you mean? Of course, you've got cash. Of course, you should have real estate. Of course, you should have like investments that are not in stock. I think when somebody says that they're all in, you should say, okay, the money that you've reserved for stock, where do you invest that? And there's
Right.
nothing wrong with, in fact, I'm totally supportive of people who want to invest in different things. And so, yeah, it's not, I don't support that people should be all in on one thing or not. It's just that, like we said, Tesla is a unique company because
Right.
it's in multiple industries and it's got a strong balance sheet fundamentals. That in that sense, the auto business is stagnant. So if you're looking at it for auto, you can say, yeah, it's not there. But if you're looking at it based on technology, like you said, all these S curves. And what's interesting is today, right now, every of these S curves are right, like they're all supporting each other and they're all
Yeah.
available now. And we've been waiting all this time to finally get to this point where it's all ready to just go like this, right? So one of the people that I've been following is have you with disruptive technology and that whole thing about just how S curves will
Right. Right.
they are complementary, they converge, and then they
Right.
complementary grow. That's the critical thing. Yeah.
Well, that's what I call the staircase, right? And it's just a matter of how narrow are the stairs. Some are like really short, one after the next, the others are a little further drawn out. But I have
Yeah.
that same impression. I think to some extent in the construct, Tesla has evolved over the years that I have been following it. And I followed it much longer than I've been a shareholder
Mhm.
in a way like the early, really, really successful stages of GE, right, where GE had so many different things that they were doing. But I think one thing that they never really accomplished is exactly what you just said,
Yeah.
that they really
Complementary.
expected things
Hmm.
to be complementary. Exactly. Now, since you mentioned these kind of phases where it's kind of flat or plateaued, I like plateaued a little better.
Yeah.
Are you dollar cost averaging then, or are you just
Oh
regularly
yeah.
accumulating, or?
Yeah. I'm still accumulating right now. Yeah. And like you just said, dollar cost averaging, which is it doesn't really if I you know, I just had this great back and forth with Gary Black, who is an
Yeah,
institutional analyst, he's actually a portfolio manager, and he was
he
saying that
decided today to
he's
follow me finally.
oh good, yeah. So
After
he's
you,
like, yeah, it's interesting. Different people have different perspective, which is
right,
again nothing's mine. But he was making fun of people who don't understand valuation. He was saying, you guys who are retail investors, what you like to do is talk a lot about business and product,
right,
but you rarely talk about valuation. Is Tesla stock, the company market valuation, at a fair price? And he wants it to be at a fair price. He wants it to be lower before he buys into it. And he sold, at 340,
yeah,
whatever number it was, and he wants to buy back at 250 because he sees the thing. And I just replied saying, that's fair. That's fine. You can do that because you're a portfolio manager. I'm a retail investor and I am a growth investor. And you are what I think your definition of who you really are is a value investor. And he'll say, no, I'm not a value investor. A value investor is somebody who's looking for when the stock is cheap, and he's also they're also looking for momentum plays. So if the stock has fallen, they'll buy more. If the stock is up, they'll sell. That's perfectly fine. That's great. You should do that. You can maximize your return. But for me, I'm looking at growth. I'm looking at companies that are disruptive. uh, Apple is a perfect example. I was very heavily into Apple and realized that that company is disrupting multiple industries. And so when you disrupt an industry, you will not only gain 10-15%, but I'm looking for the 10xer. I'm looking for the thing that can just completely win a market, or a significant amount of a brand new market that is massive. So when I look at Tesla, I'm going, okay, they have the largest markets. They're in the top, I don't know, 5 markets. I mean, like they're in energy, right? They're in AI.
right,
Now they're in labor, robotics, and auto. The only one that they're not into is pharmaceuticals,
right,
which is
right.
another top market. Uh, but so for me, it's like, and they're disrupting each of those. So that's what I'm waiting for. So for me, I'm again, no financial advice because I think every person is very different from each other and nobody's right or wrong. But in this case, Gary said, "Oh no, you guys are not looking at valuation." And I said, "Well, no, I'm not a value investor. I'm a growth investor, and I'm looking for one that's going to grow. And so the stock is going to be flat. It's going to be just up and down, and I'm fine with that. So I'll just keep buying it because I'm waiting for a 10x, not a 15, 20x. And so yeah, you know,
Yeah, I'm with you. I think, I mean, if I had to go by what Gary has been posting, well, probably the whole last 12 months, I would say, number one, I wouldn't call him a value investor. I would call him an
mm,
earnings investor, right?
mm-hmm,
Because it seems like his claim is constantly, if you don't show me earnings, then I'm not
right,
convinced that you're going to go where
yeah,
you're claiming to go. The other part is, I find this so funny. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this because he is a established analyst, right? But to me, it's a little bit of a weird thing to bragging about Uber after having pretty much missed the whole steep curve because they were not profitable, they had no earnings or nothing, but they grew. Like you as a growth investor, if that would have been your thing, you would have been on that journey all the way up to where they are. And he comes in when they're already starting to make some earnings to tell
yeah,
us, well, you have to show me the earnings before I buy. I'm like, okay,
yes,
is that too late? Right? Like you're
it's
getting
too
into,
late. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I mean, you'll make some money, but it's it's when you're waiting for earnings. And then the
You
thing is, I don't want to be invested in a company like an Uber that now he believes Uber is going to be successful, and that's fine. You can believe that, but if there's even a whiff, any kind of like potential for a company to be the one that's disrupted, I don't want to be involved in that. I don't want to risk it. But there's a real chance that Uber is going to be disruptive, and they're disrupted, and their business is going to be completely wiped out. But maybe they will succeed.
Yeah, well, I think you and I, we both could agree on one thing. If they want to be successful, they better license FSD.
Yeah. So they understand that they are talking the game. They're saying that they understand that the future is autonomy. They just think that, I think this is the crux of the argument, is they think that autonomy is going to be a commodity. So it's funny that, on one side, they'll say, I don't see Tesla ever getting to autonomy. It's going to be 5 years or 10 years. There's, 9 nines to get all the different edge cases. But on the other side, they go, as soon as Tesla gets it, everybody will have it in 3 to 6 months. And so, okay, and that's the bet. And I just don't agree that everyone will have it. Now, I do agree that autonomy and robotaxi is not a winner. It's like Tesla's not going to win every single market, because it's like every geography will have their own, favored local company that they want to focus on. They'll have regulations. So Tesla's not going to win every market, but they will win most. And the competition is just not going to be as good in terms of cost per mile, in terms of the experience itself, and just I can't see that happening at this point. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you, Herbert. The other part about it that I find is really important to recognize in this context, and it's, I think, a beautiful bridge to maybe the things that we spent the rest of our conversation about. You have to have the data, right? I mean, everybody who is even interested in this field and wants to become knowledgeable, I believe, and I'm not claiming that I'm anywhere near where I want to be in knowledge, but I believe I've clearly understood, and many others, and I believe you too, would say the one or those who have the data have at least the best opportunity to be successful in the market. And then the others who don't have the data have to make a choice if they want to have a license. But
Yeah.
to be successful without the data and without the license, I don't see it. How do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the crux of the matter. Do you believe Elon when he says that in order to have a robotaxi autonomous capability, you need to have supercomputers, you need to have billions of miles of data, you need to have the smartest engineers in the world to build you the neural nets, and of course, you need to have the cars and all the technology that you can't forget about, which often people do. So, but if you don't believe that, if you somehow think, Gary Black says this. He says that, every single company will copy Tesla within 3 months, 6 months. And I asked him, I interviewed him, and I asked him, sorry, what makes you think, what gives you that knowledge that that's going to happen? And his answer was simply that, that's happened to every software company out there. That was it. And I'm like, okay, this is not software, this is neural nets. This requires billions of miles of data. But if you don't think that that's the case, and I think there's a potential that in 3+ years, AGI can solve autonomous driving without needing that data. So there is that possibility. So I've been exploring that, diving in deeper into conversations with people who might know the matter, whether or not that is the case. But even by then, that's the other thing. Okay, do you need data or don't you need data? Yes, you do. There's no doubt about it. That's why it's taking Tesla. They're knocking out the edge cases as we go along today, because you're teaching it. Okay, what do you do when somebody's waving with you with a stop sign in the hand? Can you recognize that? Or the latest things that they're teaching Tesla cars to do now is going to the toll booth, and Ashok Goswami confirmed that they're teaching how to do that, and it actually listens in to the conversation, and it knows that a transaction has to happen, and when the person says goodbye or whatever words that they use, the neural net understands the context and says, okay, we're ready to drive away. Or does it recognize a drive-through? And so most recently we saw a video of one of the Tesla cars in a drive-through, and it knows how to like to edge a little closer to the window so that you could talk to the person and you can exchange, if you need to, money. It knew how to do that. And so these are cases where you need to teach it using data and teaching it how to do neural nets. But if you don't believe that you don't need that, then anyways, the other point I want to make is that, let's say that it is true that other car companies can copy it in 3 to 6 months. Fine. Now it becomes, when are they going to roll this out? So who's going to, even Waymo, who's so far ahead, has basically plans for 3,500 cars by the end of next year. They have 1,500 now, 3,500 max next year. How fast can you roll out cars? Let's say Ford says, okay, I've got access now to DeepSeek's AGI, and I'm going to use their OpenAI's or NVIDIA's software. Great. How long will it take them to produce all these cars And how many millions? Well, they need to install computers into the cars. They need to install all the cameras. They need to have everything integrated. That will take them 3+ years to even roll out, 100,000 if they're very lucky. By then, where would Tesla be at that point? I mean, how many millions that they'd be doing? And I just did a show last week with Brian White, and we took a look at, which is shocking to me, is how many car companies is actually already today even just announced that they're creating a robotaxi first design vehicle, a vehicle without a steering wheel and pedal. So the only ones is Tesla with their robotaxis and robovans. Then you got Zoox, which is kind of this beautiful, van-like kind of thing.
Box.
That's it.
Yeah.
I've not heard of any Chinese automaker that's done this. I've not heard of any, even Waymo. So Waymo's supposed to be so far ahead, way ahead of everybody, but they just take a regular car and they attach a bunch of things to it. That is their effort today. They have not yet announced a robotaxi first design vehicle. Because if you truly believe that robotaxi is around the corner, Waymo, with your technology, why aren't you already today designing a vehicle without a steering wheel and pedal? So
Yeah, there are quite a few things to unpack. One thing that I think is very important, and Jeff speaks about this all the time for the audience. Jeff Lutz is an amazing logistics expert. I think people massively underestimate the benefit of vertical integration.
yeah.
Right? I mean, if you ask yourself, I'm sure, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir in a sense, but anybody who looks at this a little bit through the economic lens would say, okay, it's not enough to say, is it technologically possible for somebody else, regardless whether it's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year? But does it make sense economically? So if you say, okay, I make the car, I can improve the car, I have the compute, I have the camera system for years, I've done the whole evolution through FSD, I have basically the charging, I have the whole full vertical integration. And I believe that is ultimately, if you ask me, the economic case that says this can be economically successful. I'm not even doubting that others may actually be technically successful.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
But it gives me pause just to say this one thing. You brought Apple in the conversation. If I'm not mistaken, they spent officially about 10 billion. I wouldn't be surprised if they probably spend twice as much looking into should we and can we actually figure this out. And
Apple Car.
they're not slouches, right? They're not like unaware of what's technological. They have pretty good talent, I would say. They're making a product that everybody else is kind of aspiring to and hasn't, even in 20 years now, 2007, almost 20 years, 18 years, when the iPhone came out. Nobody has really matched it. They're getting close, but not quite. So for me, it's one thing is, can it technically be accomplished by throwing all kinds of stuff together? But then is it also an economically viable thing? And the CEO of Ford, not very long ago, we both heard the interview where he said what people underestimate is when you have to take the stuff from 150 companies and put it all together and make it work in one car. Well, that's basically what they're talking about autonomous as well. Now, I want to make a little transition here, Herbert, and say, okay, so we spoke about the car case, the robotaxi, the autonomous, the cybercab. Now, let's take the next little puff of chocolate or mousse or whatever we want to call it,
Sure.
and add Optimus to this.
Yeah.
Anyways, I would like to first ask you a little bit, Optimus humanoid robot in the context of additional inference with probably the same chip you spoke today about AI5 and AI6. So the same inference, basically working like a brain in a human specific environment because everything is built that way. How do you see those two things kind of connecting and supporting the technology?
Yeah. So first of all, I before we move there, I think they're all connected. I just want to jump on your point, which is the most important point, right? So it's one thing if whether or not, let's say, other car companies, other vendors will be able to create autonomous software. That's one point, as you just point. But if you look at, let's say, give an example, Waymo and Uber. So let's count it, right? So if Waymo wanted to compete with Tesla, and they have to, for some reason, they did partner with Uber to be the app vendor. They need to partner with some sort of car company, whether it's Zeekr or Jaguar, who ran out of, no longer producing that car anymore. They need to partner with NVIDIA, paying NVIDIA the inference chips, which is 70% markups. They need to partner with somebody like an Avis to be able to do the supercharging or the cleaning, the maintenance, the service of the company. They have to partner with a company like Magna, who takes the car company, the Zeekr or the Jaguar, and then they pay them to put all the sensors all around it.
Right.
And so at that point, it's like, what? You have like 8 people you're paying.
You are really generous, because you didn't even mention all the companies that make the sensors, which they also have.
LiDAR, you have to pay the LiDAR companies, right? And then the sensors. Yeah.
Radar companies.
Because you don't make them. Right. Here's Tesla does everything in one place. Yeah. So, and because of that, they're able to also take advantage of, like you said, the robots. They call the cars robots on wheels, and then they're creating these humanoid robots. Well, now what you've done is created, let's say you're making a couple million robots on wheels, so vehicles every day, and they're all potentially to be autonomous. Now you're going to start making millions of robots, humanoid robots, but they're all using the same sensors, the same cameras, the same chips, inference chips, and the same batteries, because Tesla makes the batteries. And then so Tesla will make every part that they're already, some parts, it's all brand new, the actuators and so forth, but much of it they can reuse. They're using the same FSD computers that they use to teach FSD, the car, to be able to drive autonomously. They can use that same research that they did there and those data, plus add new data to be able to do that, to teach the robot. They're going to use the same Cortex, which is the supercomputers that they built in Giga Texas. And then there's Cortex 2, which is a massive data center. Both of these data centers support not only FSD, the cars, but they're going to now support the robots too. So all of this. So if you're Waymo, you need to have a supercomputer. Now you need to build a supercomputer, a building, and where's your data for that? And then, but you're not doing the human robots, and so your scale is much less. And so yeah, it's a big deal.
Absolutely. I mean, one thing, I'm always trying to envision a little bit how would something look like in the future, and I would love to talk to you a little bit about that. But one of the aspects in this context, if we're going beyond Optimus in the manufacturing environment and going a little bit more towards the age of abundance, then I would say, with everything you just laid out, we will have Optimus report edge cases from the perspective of a pedestrian to the system, to the universe, environment, right? Like now, ever since FSD started and then the beta tester started collecting data, it was always from the perspective of the car. But when Optimus in larger numbers in the world all over the place starts going around, like when you have yours and I have mine, and say, okay, go to the shop and get me some dog food or something like that. Well, maybe it right-hails something, but maybe it has enough time to just walk if it's close by. Well, it's now basically entering a human-made environment using exactly the technology you just described. So we have quote unquote edge cases the car reports, and we have edge cases that the humanoid robot reports. It gets like layer after layer after layer. It becomes really hard to make a case that anybody can match that.
Yeah, you have to, do you believe what Elon says or you don't? And guess what? He's almost always right. Most people like Jensen Huang believes what he says. What he's saying now is that the race to AGI, the race to AI, is basically, if you notice, every single company, they're all basically leapfrogging each other. They're basically there. The reason is because they've all used the same data. The data that's available is for large language models, is just basically the internet data, and they've gotten YouTube data, and that's it. What Elon is saying today is that you need to get the other data, which is real world data. And that is the cars driving around and all those vision that is grabbing everything that it drives, it grabs all that data. They're the only company that has that. And once they make 1 million bots, more bots than anyone else, those bots, and the example it gave was like, pouring water into a cup. Yeah. When the bot pours water into the cup, the bot can see physics and watches the water fall, and it sees what it does in the cup and can see whether or not it's going to splish out or whatever. That video is not easily accessible by the other companies like Meta, Google's DeepMind, right, NVIDIA. Until you get all these bots, who's going to be watching and interacting with the world? Opening up my fridge, opening up your fridge, and opening up my fridge is very different. Opening up your door, my door is very different.
Yeah,
And
totally.
it'll take all those data and then test physics and understand physics just like a child would walking around the world, understanding how the world works. That video data doesn't exist today. And that's what you need to get to AGI. So a lot of people think embodied AI is one of the ways, like there's a debate. I think 50% of the experts out there believe that you can get to AGI with the computers inside your computer server.
Right.
And others think that you cannot get to AGI until you've got embodied AI, like an AI in the form of something that's interacting with the world. That's what leads to some sort of consciousness or some level of consciousness. But so that's the lead that Tesla has, is they have all this real world data already with the cars. And then soon, whoever can make the most bots will have the most real world data that the bots will capture. And then that's what gets us to AGI faster than others. That's the bet he's making.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, then there's the next one about super intelligence, and where that goes. I want to go back to this kind of flowing together of technologies that Tesla is making. We haven't even spoken really in any detail about energy, but when we go to the age of abundance, Tony, at least in his book, is saying, imagine a world, the little pieces that I remember is, imagine a world where energy and labor are free or virtually free.
Yeah.
When you imagine this and you spoke to him, what would you say? How does Herbert see this world? But maybe also, when do you think we're getting close to that? Because I think this transition that Tony speaks about from the age of extraction to the age of abundance is kind of what it feels like we're in the middle of right now. Give us a little bit your vision of how fast are we getting there and how is it going to look like?
Wow. Okay. I think, again, just to remind everybody how the S curves work, right? S curves are very slow and flat for a long time with minimal little growth. And you're seeing a little curve. And then at some point you get to that S, and then all of a sudden it's exponential growth. And then you can't even capture how fast that is. So there's three main technologies that he talks about to get us to this abundant world in the future. The first one is near zero cost energy.
Right.
And that is, an example is that an extractive world, which is what we've lived all of our hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years here on the earth, is we extract oil, which is some input, and we turn that into energy, when then turns into products and businesses, right? But that oil, you need to keep supplying more and more oil, more input.
Yeah.
And if you want to grow, if companies want to grow their GDP, they want to grow businesses, they have to get more of that input. But what happens when you have the sun? The sun is infinite energy, and you store that in batteries. So you have solar and batteries to store that. What happens is energy plummets to near zero. So when you have infinite near zero cost energy, what does that do to the world in terms of what you're able to build? You can build anything, it's lower cost. And then the second thing is low cost labor. And the third thing is low cost transportation. So when you get robots, and it virtually costs you nothing to build, because the bots can work 3 shifts a day, they can just keep repeating something, and they can make more than they eventually they'll be superhuman too. By the way, they'll move 3 times faster than a human. They'll make less mistakes, all these kind of things. And eventually, what happens when you can make any product at low cost? And then the third one is low cost transportation, because the cost of most of the products we buy from Amazon, it's they already got cheap labor and automation in China. The factories are so incredibly efficient, but then it's the cost of delivery of that. Just like robotaxis, the cost is mostly the human driving. And so what happens when it's autonomous? Everything that moves will become autonomous. So now you've got these three. So where are we? I think that we're just at the beginning of that S curve. What's the guy's name? Who The Singularity is Near? He wrote that book, The Singularity is Near. Ray Kurzweil. Yeah, Ray Kurzweil. And he predicted that by 2029 that we would get to AGI by 2029. So we're literally just 4 years away from that. And the funny thing about that was he made that prediction in 20 years ago. And what happened is 99% of all AI experts at the time said, "Oh, you're nowhere near. It's not. It's going to be
Yeah,
100
right.
plus years."
Yeah.
And then every 5 or 10 years, they would redo that survey with the top AI minds, and you watch their predictions keep getting closer and closer. And Ray Kurzweil said 2029, and here we are, exactly to his. He's nailed everything so perfectly, and that is where we might go. So I think by literally in a few years, right, 4 years from now, we'll get to AGI. So, but I don't know how we're going to get to abundant energy. That requires Elon and what he's trying to push hard for that. But the mega packs, yeah. So
Well, with the abundant energy, if you ask my opinion, it is really just a matter of somewhere someone actually taking the first step. And I know that there's
yeah,
this building, or has been a lot on the media and in politics, which I don't really want to go to, but there is this constant vilifying of China, right? Like China, the enemy, they do everything wrong, blah, blah, blah. But when you really leave that aside, just put it in a box and look at the data, then you see on the energy side, they're basically practicing it. And I'm researching this out of personal interest quite a bit, because I've always been fascinated by the Eastern countries and what these guys do different. And you could debate their system good or bad, but what they do is they do long-term strategic plans based on an industrial strategy. And when Obama signed, together with many, many countries in the world, the Paris Climate Accord, they said, we want to be energy independent, like renewable energy independent by 2050. And now everybody says probably by 2040. But already today, with a growing economy, they're producing somewhere slightly above 50%. And almost all of it is solar. But they also did things like invent a cable that has almost no heat, no
yeah,
loss over like 1,000 miles. So they put the panels in the Gobi Desert where nobody lives and deliver it to Shanghai and to Beijing. So to
wow,
me,
yeah,
it takes a spark, you know, and I don't know if Elon or Tesla is going to have to be the spark again, like so many
oh, for
times
sure,
before.
yeah. I have a prediction on that. So
Well,
yeah, you're.
let me say one
Yeah,
more thing, but I'm personally, um, I think actually it would be cool if Redwood would do it,
yeah.
right? If Redwood
Right
would
materials.
actually say, we make the solar panels and we recycle the batteries and we make a circular economy. But you had an idea too.
No, no. So first of all, I totally agree with you. China is, you got to be concerned for the US if you don't watch and listen to what China's doing. They're so far ahead in energy generation and storage, 8 times. And like you said, solar and batteries is what they've made their bets in than the US. So whoever gets cheap energy will rule the world, period. No doubt about it. And especially with AI data centers requiring so much energy, what's going to happen in the future. So uh, I believe my prediction, and you had Alexandra Mertz here on your show the last episode. She and I have been having this debate, but she knows I've been saying this for a while now. I believe that Tesla's going to do energy generation, and the
Okay.
reason is that when Elon announced the Master Plan Part 3, he had 3 pillars to energy to sustainable abundance, and one of them was energy generation. Tesla doesn't do much in solar. So I believe that Tesla is going to make a big announcement very soon about some sort of massive solar farm, whether it's in Texas or distributed or even in Saudi Arabia, and prove, like you're saying, just some sort of proof that this amount of square miles is enough to power a city or a state or the country. And I think Tesla's going to get there because they need energy generation to be able to show you everything we're talking about. This is low cost energy, and then partner with the mega packs to store the energy, the batteries, and then it's game over at that point. So if Elon has ambitions of creating these AI data centers, and he kind of did this little smiley smirky face when somebody said, "Hey, Elon, are you thinking about creating AI data and selling AI data centers?" Smiley face. I think that that's where he's headed, right? So you take the data centers, you have batteries, megapacks, and you have solar to fund to because whoever owns the energy is the rate limiting step right now for these AI data centers, and then he could take that, build many, sell them, or even just have access to it themselves. And so I think that that's why he needs to build these solar farms. Yeah.
I have a suspicion. I have no evidence to support it other than just gut feeling, but I have a suspicion this endeavor that they started to take initially regular solar city panels
Right.
and make that into a business and integrate that into Tesla. And then this idea to make it look beautiful by having the
Right.
Tesla solar roof. I think this is, like I said, complete speculation, but I have the suspicion that somewhere, I don't know if it's in Buffalo or somewhere, there is a team
Yes.
looking into perovskite panels and the regular panels and the high energy panels and the dual side and dual spectrum and blah, 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 that at some point in the not too distant future, they're going to come out and say, okay, we have the 35% panel or the 40% panel. So we can kind of have a much smaller size. I've seen now research where you can, and I'm not saying this is mega feasible, but you can even get moonlight to generate electricity. So
Yeah.
the spectrum, it's really a matter of what spectrum are you actually aiming for and can you make it economically viable. But what really, where it comes together for me, is that all these pieces fitting together out of one system where all the people that are working within the system, they are all fed by the same core rather than individual somewhere in the world, somebody develops and discovers something and it isn't implemented, it isn't aligned, it isn't anything near what the other organizations do. And then you have this issue that like the Ford guy said, or the Volkswagen people say, well, we're buying this stuff, we're basically just assembling. Well, that's never going to compete against somebody who literally makes everything in-house.
Yeah. Yep.
Now, when you
Yeah, I do think that their solar energy, Tesla's solar business, right? They pulled away from homes. I
yeah.
don't think that they were struggling. They were trying to make good money there, but I think that they're redirecting those people to businesses, corporations, or something like you're talking about, some sort of I think a solar farm is my guess.
Okay, cool. So coming towards the end of our show today, I want to ask you to maybe let loose and think a little bit in the future
Yeah.
when when you and I at least hope we both each have an
Yeah.
Optimus. We have access to a Cybercab. We may still have a Tesla if we want to drive a little bit. And these other integrated technologies, we have whatever then is it GPT-9 or whatever it's going to be. Imagine a little bit for the audience, how will life look like when these things that Tony is projecting, or whether it's 2029 or 3032, forget about the year, but how would life look like
Yeah.
in your vision?
Okay. So first of all, I've been very fortunate because of what my job is today, where I get to interview experts daily. I've happened to have interviewed 13 of the top CEOs of the top humanoid bot companies out there. I've had Dr. Scott Walter on my show, over 110 or 20 shows we've done on humanoid robots. and and so that's just the thing that thrills me, or it just gets me, really just amazed at this. I have no idea what's going to happen. I have zero guess of what could happen. I'm still at the 50-50 mark, 50% dystopia and 50% utopia. I am generally, as a person, it sounds like you are too, age of abundance. I lean towards optimism that it's going to be an amazing utopia kind of world. uh, what will, and then, but on the way there, that's obviously I'm going to be concerned about people losing their jobs, and there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be left in a lurch during that path to, where money doesn't matter and every product is available and transportation is low cost and so forth. So it's a path to get there that I'm very, very worried about. I'm thinking to myself, maybe the reason I want to make so much money if I can with the stock is that one day I might need to have my own private island. Do I need a private island to protect myself if we're in a dystopia? I don't know. But if it's a utopia, I think the world is amazing. I mean, it's hard to say because AGI is like very useful for you, but then at some point it could be very destructive for you, right? It's like, do we want a world where people are not using their brains anymore and everything's done for them? So
Yeah.
I hope it's a utopia. But yes, I see a world where human or robots are everywhere, and it's not just human or robots, by the way. You hear Elon talk about both R2D2 and SC3PO. So R2D2, so anything that moves, anything but a camera, will be autonomous. And so, and I think Tesla will be doing that. So I think you'll be shocked when we find out that Tesla's not only been working on Optimus, but many different form factors. So there'll be like robots everywhere. You'll have autonomous driving, um, and I hope the world, this is the world's environment has changed, right? So you don't have streets, you have more parks, beautiful homes, and everything is accessible to more people. Um, but I don't know.
Yeah, well, I'm not claiming that I know one thing. There are a few things that I see where there's still two specifically with a huge room for improvement that are in a way similar to what you and I spoke about with the S curves, right? Human beings really have a hard time imagining exponentials.
Yeah.
I think what we have also been very conditioned for thousands of years now as human beings is to basically pretty much live almost exclusively in two dimensions,
Mhm.
except for the rare case where we get on a plane to go from A to B. But to really explore whether you go in the direction of Boring Company or you go in the direction of some
Yeah.
sort of like I don't know, a robo air taxi or something like that, right? So the whole evolution of three-dimensional space and what is possible. I know there is also that stuff literally in space, but I mean more like
Hmm.
between the ground and let's say 1,000 feet or something like that.
Yeah.
There is a whole new world, I think, that we only see in the movies, but have a hard
Yeah.
time imagining how that could actually go. And the other part, and that's my last question for you, Herbert. I believe there's many, many, many people who have amazing potential for innovation, creativity, um, willingness to support each other, building communities, but they are basically caught in a dependent relationship to exchange their time for money. And I wonder how you would describe it when that's no longer necessary, when you have abundance in the way that you can really live up to your full potential. Do you see any things that can do?
I have no idea. I mean, I asked myself that same question, a few years ago, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah,
I said, okay, if I am going to retire, I'm no longer running my startups. What do I want to do? And it was, okay, I want to be learning as much as I can about technology. I enjoy learning about Tesla. I want to meet people daily like you and others. I interview everybody once a day, and that's what I'm doing every day. So it's, for me, it's a fun. Now, but in the future, AI is going to take over my job. I don't know if there's a need for a human to interview other humans. It might just be we're all absorbing information from AI, who are so human-like that you prefer to watch them, I think. But we'll see what happens there. So I don't know if I can see what would humans do. And so this idea of Neuralink, yeah, if you can download information as fast as AI can, but then what happens to you? What is your purpose in life and your goals? It's hard to know. Yeah.
yeah. Well, one of the things, I give you one thought that I have had recently after studying a number of different technological utopian kind of ideas, is to say if we could, as an individual or in the context of our families, dive into worlds that may be artificially generated and
Right.
our time there and experiment. Like
Yeah.
I didn't say
I
this in
see.
the beginning, like, but I come from an aviation background
Yeah.
where before they let you fly a fighter jet, they let you fly a simulator, right?
Yes.
And so one of the things that is quite eerie but also reassuring is when you fly the simulator, you're not thinking about it all the time, but in the end, you kind of know that you're not going to die if it crashes,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so that thought to say we can create environments where people or whole families can dive into the environment and explore it
Yeah.
like lifelike without the fear of starving or, getting killed or what. And I don't mean the stupid killing games. I'm talking about a real environment where you can't distinguish anymore if it's actually real or if it is artificially generated, kind of like the holodeck in Star Trek.
The holodeck in Star Trek. I love this idea so much. You just got me very excited. I can see me and my family, like, because we like going to movies. We like to go to amusement parks. We love to play these these games where you go to the mystery rooms, and so there becomes an adventure, but also you're learning something. Like, dive deep into the world of insects and live with the insects and see what actually happens. I would love to do that.
Yeah, me too. I get all kinds of idea. And see, the thing is, you always say, well, I would love to do it, but I have no time. Well, you would have all the time in the world, right, to do that.
And then you're still learning and you're still experiencing something interesting. That could be very cool. Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
Me too. So, Herbert, tell the audience that if they haven't watched your show or haven't seen you on YouTube, how do they find you the best way?
Sure. I have a YouTube channel called Brighter with Herbert, and I basically interview experts on Tesla. We cover everything from human or robots to, the technology that Tesla is doing, especially the autonomous driving. Anything that's new, we share that information. So I like to learn. And so I like to interview people who are experts in the spaces and try to get the best person I can find to share that information with lots of people.
Yeah, and I can tell the audience, if you haven't done it yet, I've been doing it for years and it's awesome. And Herbert always finds new people to dive deeper and deeper. So thank you for being on the show, Herbert.
Thank you, Axel. Appreciate you. Okay.